One Nation's been the only consistent political party for the last 20 years.
They're not talking about you. All right, well, let me tell you, One Nation is talking about you.
Looks like the media's run away from One Nation. They're too scared to ask us any questions, mainly because we're straight talkers and we've got the answers.
This is like a call to arms. You guys need to start making the real decisions and who you're going to vote for.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the ExCandidates. My name is Tripp, and as always, I'm joined by the wonderful Zahra. How are you tonight, Adam?
I'm pretty good, Stephen. How you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you. And on tonight's show, we've got two independents from Victoria who made a big fuss on our Facebook just recently. So we thought we'd get them on to give their point of view. We've got Sarah O'Donnell and Carolyn White. How are you tonight?
Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for
Awesome.
having us.
Yeah, thank you
Well,
very
good
much.
to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah, we'll start off with you. Just I'm going to really butcher the name of your electorate. Is it Mordialloc?
Mordialloc.
Mordialloc, sorry.
That's all right.
So next time I'm down in Mordialloc, I'm coming to see you. Then I come and say g'day because I've got family that I visit down there. I go down there.
Wow.
Excellent. Come
Right by
say
the beach.
hello. Reach
Right by the
out.
beach, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep. Stone's throw.
Yeah, good. Sorry, guys. I had to jump in. Anyway, let's Stephen keep going. Keep going with your question.
No, that's all right. Just give us a bit of a background. Who are you? What's your political history, and how did you go in the Victorian election?
So I'm Sarah O'Donnell. I ran in the state election for the Mordialloc electorate. I had, first of all, my first political experience was running in the federal election in the seat of Isaacs, which I ran against our now current Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, which was a bit of fun. And it was a good learning curve for me. So I hit 4.9% of the vote in the federal election, which I was pretty pleased with after a 6-week campaign. I became politically motivated. I own a swim school I own Aspendale Swim School. And during our lockdowns, this is how Caroline and I also became very well acquainted. Both of our businesses were hit very hard during the lockdowns, where we were the first ones to close and the last ones to open. And during that time, I watched my industry be decimated to some extent. So many didn't survive, and others are still crawling back today. However, during that time, we got to watch Victoria's drowning statistics skyrocket to the highest ever recorded in history. Or in recordings. So it was a pretty difficult thing to watch, and we were many of us were trying to do so much to get anyone to listen to us. And it was incredibly frustrating watching the elected members in Victoria couldn't care less. I did have a lot of fun out on the state campaign going, so why my industry? Why the poor people that have lost their children or their family members to drowning? And they were following the health advice, apparently. So that's how I became motivated. I took on the federal election as, I call it, my apprenticeship. It was my learning. And I actually really enjoyed myself, and I learned a lot and built a really awesome network. And met this wonderful woman beside me, and we're very, very like-minded. So it was a pretty easy decision when we started talking after the federal election on what we do next. And that's when the state election was in our sights, and off we went. So in the state election for the seat of Mordialloc, I've finished on 7.4% of the vote, I think, at the moment. Still fell back into just missed third position. So the Green got up on me. And that's another frustrator. It's another story. But yeah, there it is. So, yeah, Daniel had a 10.3, even though he flew in from Brazil a couple of days before the ballot was drawn. But, he did so much campaigning. It was unbelievable. He's really well known in the electorate. I would openly say that's where branding got you 10.3% of the vote. Daniel, well done, buddy.
Bit of
I was watching
indoctrination.
one of your videos and you were saying that there was only 3 candidates actually campaigning. Who were those candidates?
That's the Liberal, the Labor, and myself. So
Yeah, okay.
the,
So everyone else were fly-ins.
yeah,
So
yeah, it really.
I love the health advice. They're following the health advice. The only thing that's really safe and effective is death caused by
Yes,
drowning.
absolutely. Great health
Yeah,
advice.
so
Don't
like-
drown in the midst of it though, because no one's going to be there to save you.
I'd rather catch a flu and
Yeah, you and me both.
learn how to swim so that I could actually save myself from real death than, you know,
Yeah.
and not taking it away from people who died of the flu and all that kind of stuff. You know, you always got to be in, I don't know, you seem a little bit conservative, I'm conservative, but, you know, you've got to really round yourself out these days. Every time you open your mouth, you've got to go, oh, but wait a second. I don't really mean like everyone who dies, and I'm not trying to take it away from you because I know that the flu's real, but what happens is, but, you know, death is,
100% agree
death by
with you.
drowning is pretty certain.
It was incredibly frustrating from my perspective as a swim school owner. And after I left university, I've pretty much given my entire life to my industry, and we all work towards a common goal, and that is to drowning prevention. Like, I'm a lifesaver. My eldest 2 out of my 3 children are lifesavers. We all patrol on the beach together. They both work for me in my swim school. And as you said, Mordialloc, we are on the beach. It's part of life for us, and I've heard some pretty horrific stories in my time, and working towards something that we were making enormous progress. And this is across our country. To have that in Victoria completely shut down and watching it skyrocket and spiral out of control with no one listening and no one cared. And it's watching the knee-jerk reaction to my industry of the state government funding. So in what happened, we ended up being in one of the industries that went unrecognised. And we lost a lot of our experienced instructors over the 2 years. And then we all came back to start up our businesses, and they'd all gone off to work in other jobs that had secure employment. And you're losing, 10, 15, 20 year plus experienced instructors, which you just can't bring back in. Like a child with autism is 600 times more likely to drown than a child of mainstream. So I work and have done extensive work with children with autism over the years, and to lose instructors with that experience, they're not easily replaced. You can't just replace that one of my more entertaining stories, and this is just to make light of it. My eldest daughter went off to do her Ausswim course soon after we returned and the industry opened back up, and there was funding available for people to do their Ausswim course. And Jess, my eldest daughter's come from a swimming background and had quite a good career, taken away from COVID, but anyway, in the lockdowns. But anyway, she rocked up to her Ausswim course, and there were 13 people in the course, and they go through their introductories, and this is to teach, learn to swim, and 3 of the people enrolled in the course couldn't swim. So it was, great use of money here in Victoria for funding of courses, because, we're just going to rebuild the industry on people that can't swim, which is, that's just money in Victoria well spent again.
Well, it's amazing because they spent, I remember, like, I'm an 80s child, so I remember that they had the whole, safe pool program, the government funded, or taxpayer funded by the government. Yep. To learn to swim. Make sure your kid learns to swim here, enroll your kid for swimming. And then what's the point of having all your gates and all that kind of stuff around your pools? I know it stops the kids from getting in, but doesn't stop all the kids from getting in. And then what happens is the best thing, or the best preventative of drowning, is knowing how to swim, so the kid doesn't panic when they fall in the water.
And that's from when you review the drowning statistics. And I was just reading literally over the weekend, the most recent. We have had improvements since we've been open this year, which is great. It's what you deal with children, and the common phrase of it's like learning to ride a bike, which, if you're going to get back on that bike after a number of years off it, that you're going to be sketchy. So, you're going to probably fall off a few more times or things along those lines. Unfortunately, when you get into the water and you find yourself out of depth, or in a situation where you're not going to necessarily react as you once may have, it's not just falling off your bike and getting back up again. So, yeah, it's been incredibly heartbreaking witnessing what had happened. And also, after the first year of lockdowns, I had to work with a couple of my own students who, in that 2 to 3 years of age bracket, who both had near drownings and were rushed to hospital and spent extensive time in hospital, then being monitored for secondary drowning. So those statistics no one's going to see, and it's sure as hell not being reported in the state of Victoria. So it's interesting how over the many years I've been involved in learning to swim that the state government could promote, and it happens right across Australia, promote how well we've been doing as an industry. But when the roles were reversed after the decisions they made, because we were considered a community sport, that they, covered that up pretty well. So I'm doing everything I can now to make sure that it's not covered up to that extent. But we're on the right road, and we are recovering. But yeah, we've got many years to build back our experienced instructors and get our industry back to what it was.
Wow.
See, that's the big part of the lockdown. There's so many flow-on effects that we haven't really been able to comprehend yet. There's a lot of things that 2 years is a long time to take away from certain areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got smashed down here. Yeah.
Well, the learn to swim industry and both industries fall very closely aligned. It ended up being over 12 months that in our entirety that we've completely closed for. So
that's crazy.
It was, I never forget having the argument with any elected member that would listen of, I did get told, and obviously you guys know Melbourne's climate, she's not overly warm. And so we were indoor community sport. There's not a big business, there's not a good business idea model to bring out in Victoria for outdoor learn to swim. It doesn't really fly so well. So all of our pools are indoor for learn to swim. So when we got opened, there was very little option for teaching. And I remember clearly saying to a specific member of parliament, you do realise that hypothermia is a real issue. So they need a bit more reminding every now and again.
And Carolyn,
sorry. I got one more question. We've got one more question for Sarah, just quickly. Do you think that COVID could survive in all that chlorine air?
It's been proven that it can't. So not that anyone wanted to hear about what COVID's an enterovirus. It's very easy to kill.
Because I walk into one of those places and you can barely breathe. It takes you a few minutes, it takes a second. That first breath that you take in with those heated pools is kind of like, oh, wait a minute.
I run a mineral ozone system on my pool, and 3,000 times more effective than a chlorinated pool. Far more gentler on the skin. It's all modern technologies that they use. And there are plenty of our pools out there that have adjusted over the time to being so that we're not getting that in your face harsh chloramines to some extent. So it's where we run systems that are even far more effective. And with all the studies that went on, chlorine was the chlorinated swimming pool in its ideal ranges was what it was tested against. COVID can't last. It does not survive.
I can barely survive in a heated pool. Honestly, it's like, you need to tell the heated pool around my area about this technology, because honestly, you jump in that swimming pool and it's almost like an acid peel. You come off and you peel your skin off. I
think they might need to do some work on their pools.
But I love my local pool. For anybody who's watching, it's a great place. And my daughter does go in there as well, okay? All right, sorry, it's Carolyn's turn as well. So, Carolyn, you can introduce yourself and let us know what's going on with you and what you've been about.
Yeah, so I'm Caroline White. I'm a mum from Cheltenham in Melbourne. I've got a beautiful 9-year-old son, and I'm a business owner. I've owned and operated Two Shoes Dance Academy for the past decade. We have locations in the northern suburbs of Melbourne and in Nagoya, Japan.
Oh, wow.
And I got politically active when brothels could operate, but children couldn't go to their dance schools.
Well, men got to get off, right?
Pardon?
Men got to get off, right?
Well, I actually started thinking about opening the dance classes inside the brothel, and then that way, the dads would be happy, and the kids
interesting
got to
business
dance
model
as
right
well.
there.
What about? Well, I think that's
we had to get.
You know
creative.
what? Being down in Victoria, they might be pro that kind of thing. Well, the government, not the people, but the government might.
Yeah,
Well,
no doubt.
I'm not going to take the learn to swim industry there. I just think it might be going too far.
Anyway, Carolyn, sorry to interrupt.
No, so basically I'd had enough. I really had, because my industry, even though we work with children, we were lumped in with adult gyms. And so it was really horrible because like the kids could go to school, they could go to swimming, they could go to football, cricket, all of it, but these little girls couldn't go to their dance classes. It was so horrible. And, you know, like dance classes, I literally have spots on the floor and always have 1.5 meters apart for the kids to stand on so they don't hurt each other. But like Sarah, you know, a lot of our local MPs were simply ignoring us.
Yep.
And so I actually, I decided to protest, and what I did with David Limbrick's help, got mainstream media attention. They eased the restrictions earlier for my industry because of what I did.
What was the protest? What were you doing to protest?
So it was really scary. Like I got the police, because basically, you know, Dan Andrews had his daily, you know, presser where you'd go on and be like, what's my life going to look like at 11:59 p.m. tonight? Lord. And it was like,
Is that the truth?
oh man, and we were shut again. And you know, we've got all the dance studio owners in a Facebook group in Melbourne, and you know, someone jumps on and was like, you know, and we all like, you know, and it starts, and it's like we're all so angry, and I was like, that's it, I'm protesting. You know, got on the phones. You know, one of the photographers from my dance school was like, he's like, do a tutu march. I was like, great. But, you know, I had to call the police to let them know what I was doing, because what I was doing was, I don't know, considered illegal at the time. And, you know, they tried to intimidate me for hours and hours I spent on the phone. And I was like to the policewoman on the phone, I was like, I don't think you understand. You can go to a brothel, but children can't go to a dance school. And she's like, oh, yeah, you know, I know. It's kind of like, I'm like, well, no, this is what I'm doing. I said, we've followed the health advice for 18 months now. On the weekend, it's not going to be any different. And what happened was, at the time, we had 25-kilometre restrictions. And I had a lot of my industry. Now, I'm talking where little girls, mums, families, ballet teachers, they were afraid to come to that protest, not because of the virus, but because of the police brutality that we've experienced in our state. Yep. And so, but, you know, I still had a good 30 of us, and, you know, a little girl came in a beautiful tutu and this gorgeous male cheerleader, and, you know, they had pom-poms, and you know, the police kind of like came up and then just left us alone. Because I don't think shooting rubber bullets at little kids in tutus was the look that Dan Andrews was going for.
Not in open doors, behind closed doors, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Not out in the public.
Yeah, so that was basically that. It was a really, you know, it was really great. We brought a lot of attention to my industry about what was going on, because, you know, drownings, you know, is like the negative effects in impacts that Sarah had in her industry. We had some of the most horrific things with these young girls, things I've never seen in our industry for I've been involved with dance schools for 30 years. I'm talking, there was one dance teacher, and because we were actually lucky in the sense that we could conduct all of our classes via Zoom. Yep. But one of the dance teachers said she had a little girl say, can I go into a breakout room with you? And she said to her dance teacher, you know, I've been cutting myself, you know, I'm self-harming and I can't stop. And so she, you know, so the dance teacher got the parents in the room to make sure that the parents knew what was going on. And, in my industry, I had, a mother commit suicide. I had another mother try to commit suicide, and she's just still struggling. She's been struggling with mental health issues ever since. A little girl, and I don't, I thought she'd come into my class, and I was like, oh, you're bleeding. I thought maybe she'd it was on her ankle, hurt herself, riding a bike or something like that. But then, I look closer and she's, done cuts down her leg and was bleeding in the studio and stuff. I mean, this is just out of control, when it was all about what's the virus. I mean, we've always known that this virus has an average age death in the 80s with 3 to 4 comorbidities. They sacrificed our youth down here. And
we're still seeing the effects now today.
I feel like all shaky just bringing that up again. But so anyway, so I did that, and then David Limbrick, because he was the only person that listened and took any time for me. I said to him, is there anything I can do to help? And he said, well, you could always run as a candidate. And so I ran with him on the Senate ticket in the federal election. And then shortly after the federal election, when we kind of came to realise what was happening with Glenjury and that whole scenario down here, buying your seat in Parliament, and the fact that that it was taxpayers' money in this instance that was being misused, which I have a really big issue about. Sarah and I just decided to run as the real independents. I ran in Sarah's neighbouring electorate in Clarinda. And, I did quite well as well. I got 7.8% of the vote. Once the preferences were distributed at the end of last week, I've come third, and so I got 14% of the vote.
So you beat the Greens?
So I ended up coming third with preferences with 14%. Under the two major parties, which was, that's what kind of we achieved in a few months.
Yeah.
So
that's a fantastic result for independents, with basically coming from nowhere. To be able to achieve that result is fantastic.
Yeah. Well,
we're pretty proud with what that's done.
And this is what we managed to do within a matter of months. It's 4 years until the next election. So I
think we've learnt more in the past year, politically and election wise, than we both ever knew before. So
join the club.
Campaigning is a marketing exercise, and Sarah and I are small business owners, so we've managed it like a business.
That was all we knew how to do. So,
and
it was run it like a business and go from there.
And you can see with those micro parties, they never get. We just knew that being with one of those parties, we weren't going to get more than. They're lucky to get 4%. They get. 1.
On average, that 2% hang around.
So we were like, nah, we're not. We're gonna do it our way.
Speaking of Glenjury, did you ever speak to anyone from the Liberal Democrats about that?
Yeah. So
I've signed an NDA, so Caroline's going to do most of the talking on this. Okay.
Fair enough.
I didn't sign one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So what do you want to know?
Well, just their reaction. Did they try and defend it?
Yeah, some people think that, that it's okay, it's the game and that you have to play it, which I really have, which I just doesn't sit right with me. I'm a big believer in doing things the right way, and I think that if you don't do things the right way, things will never work out with you, because that's the way the universe works. And so, I guess my major issue with, buying your seat at the table was the fact that they had him on a taxpayer wage. So usually people pay $50,000. And what they do is a candidate will pay them $5,000.
A buy-in.
And if they get elected, then they pay him the other $45,000. Whereas the Liberal Democrats had him on a taxpayer-funded wage, which was extortionate as well. And that's just what I've been told. I can't confirm the exact amount. But let's just say that if Sarah and I had that money, we would have both gotten ourselves elected the right way.
It came down to both of us, ethically and morally. If with the game going into politics, we see, and Victoria, I think we hold the banner high down here, the level of corruption and the dealings that are done down here that are completely immoral, let alone illegal, or should be. I couldn't ever stand with a party that had and was willing to engage with this. And I mean, the motivation to be running and make the changes, yes, it's from a business perspective and my own family, but ethically and morally, I can't associate with that. So yes, you were in Victoria, you're behind the 8 ball if you're running in the upper house with that, but I can't, at least I can go to bed at night and know that I've done everything without aligning with anything that is corrupt or completely immoral. So, and that's
undemocratic.
Yeah,
what it
absolutely.
is.
It is completely undemocratic.
And it needs to go. That needs to go before the next election cycle. It has no place.
I'm not sure it will. Not after what we just saw in the results.
Yeah, Andrews is in. Yeah. But I was going to say, ladies, so you're like, what it's like now, because I guess you guys are ex-candidates just like us. Yep. And how much you become under public scrutiny. So I also agree with you guys about doing things the right way. Probably a little bit more lax now. I've been through the circle once before. I'll have another go. It's a bit not as stressful. But if you're already over the barrel, how do you expect to do like that you're already on the take as far as I'm concerned with this whole preference whisperer thing? He's already pulling the strings, because all he has to do is leak out some sort of information about you that he'd have, and he doesn't seem like a very good character or trustworthy person, to be honest with you, from that expose that I saw. So I'm kind of like, if you're already over a barrel, you're already crooked, so you might as well not run.
The thing is, though, no one initially knows who's bought into it either. So it's a top secret exercise happening in the background, going, who's paid the highest dollar and which candidates in the lower house are being thrown under the bus as sacrificial lambs for the benefit of those in the upper house. So in Victoria, it was running as a real independent seemed like it was the only option, because who can you trust?
None of them. The minor part. That's what I came to realize. I was like, the minor parties, are just as bad as the major parties. I can't, get involved.
It was, for us, it was when we did, we interviewed with, and we went through pre-selection with with a few of the other parties, and none of it ever sat right. It was always elements of doubt and question, and that's when we both sat back and went, well,
let's go get a wine and let's do this, girl.
Yeah, we might have had a couple by the time we came to the conclusion that we're going to run full real independence.
Yeah.
But
we're doing it.
Wow, but the electoral commission would be pretty helpful to you. Were they not? Are they not? They don't help you at all. Like every time I've rung the electoral commission, like in New South Wales, to ask a question, reset a password, help me with some stupid thing that I got to do. They're always lovely.
My election manager, who you get just before you nominate, she was great, but I didn't meet her until 4 weeks before the election. So yours wasn't so great.
Well, because my incumbent, I went really hard on him. Like I attacked.
Yes, you did.
And even at pre-polls, I was just like, oh yeah, it's on every day. I'm here. Let's do this. And so then he just started dobbing on me for and then she would come out and would be like, how is it? And she would be like, well, actually, no, there's nothing wrong. And I was like, well, Robin, unless you want to be locked in your house for Christmas, I need to go back to handing out harder votes. So by the end of it, she was just like, it just kept going and going like that with mine. But, once I tried to call the VEC because I had a question, they didn't. And I had to leave a.
This poor
There
bloke.
he is.
It's only faith.
There he is.
He's a. Don't worry about it.
Gentle soul.
Is he the fly-in?
No.
No.
So this is his second term, I'm pretty sure, but he's been hanging around the traps for forever, for like a decade. But he was so.
Because mine is a career politician. Mine's a Labor, straight out of university and into the Labor Party, and off you go. We'll find you a special little seat to go and disrupt. So is he a career politician?
Well, he kind of is.
With a law degree. That's their favourite thing down here. Just get a law degree and go straight in the Labor Party. So they will.
So we got with law degree or doctors up this end, or ex-veterans or military guys. It doesn't matter if you're Army Reserves or if you've been on the front line. They love you.
So my volunteer lifesaver bit wasn't going to get up, was it?
I think a volunteer lifesaver is pretty damn good, to be honest.
But yeah, no, it's a law degree down here, and just a good stint in the Labor Party, and off you go. And even my Liberal candidate, and as much as he and I got on well, he is a career politician, and I'm quite happy to say that to his face. He's been employed in the Liberal Party for, in fact, I think pretty much all of his working life. So I had as a small business owner, that was something that really upsets me a little bit. And
well, they've just got no clue. They're so detached from the reality of what it's like to be an everyday Victorian down here, just completely detached. And then it's kind of like, if we run our businesses the same way these guys are running the state,
we'd be in jail.
So they're just out of control.
We would be. That's the thing. My current member, and I have to choose my words really carefully because I'm pretty sure I'm being watched like a hawk by him. Not only have they both been done during the red shirt scandal.
Oh yeah, they were named in the anti-corruption investigations as well.
But they've been named a number of times in IBAC. It's like mine extorted $14,000 worth of stamps to help fund his 2014 election. It's all good though. You're allowed to extort money through your businesses.
Sounds like Trippy loves his stamps.
Yeah, Timmy loves his stamps. We call him Timmy Stamp
Timmy the
Boy.
Stamp Collector, we call him. So I had fun on a pre-poll reminding him of that. It didn't go down so well, apparently. I'm not sure why.
So you guys spoke before about why you became independent, and you talked about who you can trust and that sort of stuff. So we'll dive into the real reason why you're here, because we had this post here with a recent.
There he is. Hi, Joel.
Yeah, a recent episode we had with Joel Jamal, and we had a comment in the comments feed here, and then it just kind of blew up.
Caroline,
You'll jump in, basically slagging off Joel and Turning Point Australia. Do you want to just give us the reasons why you do have a problem with Joel Jamal and Turning Point?
I will just say one thing. Let's not bag him too much because he's not here to rebut.
No, that's fair. And we've both spoken to him independently.
Yes. So basically what he's done is, Sarah and I as real independents have been working in our community for months and months and months without a day off, putting tens of thousands of our own dollars in.
Yeah.
And then at the last minute, he's come along with his How to Votes or Turning Point Australia, and they've put paper candidates in 1 and 2. So now I am talking, these 2 candidates in my electorate did not turn up until election day. Now, and as well, once the preferences were distributed, they all came to me, all of their preferences. So basically it's cost me maybe I'm down about, $15,000 from the decision. And I was actually in an event, and I raised when I got up and spoke, I spoke for maybe, 5-10 minutes. I raised the issue, like just to educate people, you know, don't vote for paper candidates. Vote for real candidates, community people who are here to give our community solutions, you know, that aren't just running to try and get, you know, an upper house member elected. And so, and then, you know, afterwards, Joel came out and we had a bit of a chat, but then nothing was amended.
No.
And so, you know, to the point where I'd have people come, you know, so they're so confused. We're dealing with a political system here that people are forced to partake in, and they have no idea what they're doing. And so they'd come with like the turning point, how to vote. And I'd be like, no, you know, you need to vote for me. And they'd be like, oh, good, cool. Well, I'll take your how to vote and I'll do it that way, you know. So that's my little rant.
I spoke to Joel because I was at the same event that Caroline was speaking at. And I went up to him and I said, what's going on? And he said, we need to talk. Like, something's obviously not right. And I said, Joel, you had me in the federal election as number one. So on your how to vote, it's, you know, I'm independent now, but my values haven't changed. And I said, there's been no engagement. Like, who decided on putting these two? It's quite interesting because the Family First candidate actually was a volunteer on my federal campaign. And both have openly, both the Freedom Party candidate and the Family First candidate, both openly said they are only running to raise the profile of their upper house candidate. And when I stood there with the Family First candidate, I said, can you just give me one issue in our electorate? And his response was families. I said, Patrick, try again. Like, I've got a family too. I know you do, and we care for them. Move on. Small business said, dude, I own one. Come on, you know. I said, name an issue in the electorate of Mordialloc that we need to be fighting for. And he couldn't. Like, both the two, mine rocked up for pre-poll occasionally. They didn't do your candidates that literally rocked up on election day.
I was like, oh, they're like, hi, Caroline. I was like, oh my gosh, you're a real person.
And
I
openly had the conversation with both candidates, and I said, you're just taking straight from my primary vote. I said,
yeah, that's right.
You're, and they're like, no. And when I got to the point where I was able to explain it to them, they're like, oh, Sarah, we're really sorry. I said, guys, I have been, and I said, Patrick, you should know better because you know that I have, in Victoria, we came off the federal election to maybe have 5 minutes break to try and, you know, start planning for the state. And I said, Patrick, you know how hard in that short space of time I'd worked on the federal election, and now you're going to run against me? Like, what are you doing? And he sent me a text message just before he nominated, you know, apologising that he was going to do this. I'm like, why are you apologising? Just don't do it. Like,
people need to stop being paper candidates. But what's even worse, 20% of my electorate nearly voted for a paper candidate. Now, I'm talking like the Greens girl. She came to a candidate forum and sat in the audience because she can't speak publicly, and yet 7.9% of the electorate voted. Like, this is part of...
Mine was in Brazil up until a few days beforehand.
And actually had the Liberals and in our electorates or Sarah and I's primary being just that bit higher, by them splitting the vote, we would have been in a position where, you know, more right-leaning conservative parties or candidates haven't got up, and then it would have allowed the Labor Party to come up. So it can actually be, and I think Meg was in the comments, was commenting that in some electorates,
and it's going to have a huge...
It's meant the Labor Party's gotten up because of what...
The Bass electorate is going to experience that 100% because the Labor Party's going to get up because, well, I don't know if it's been called just yet, but it's that close that bringing those minor parties in where the Freedom Party preference Labor over conservative others, you lose a seat. And, you know, it's detrimental then to
what the objective here?
Exactly. What is the objective? What are we all working towards?
You know?
Are we getting too many egos in there that are more worried about their own backside than they are about the rest of us?
Stephen's been saying that.
You've opened up You've opened up a can of worms with all of this,
I
so
have.
let's just
We
tackle
have.
one thing at a time, maybe.
Sure.
First thing with Joel, he was running on a budget of just over $4,000, so he can't be across everything. And I know that he was. I think he said on our podcast that he had separate people doing the how to vote cards. Why? Like, if you do have a look at the how to vote cards that they've put out, technically, yes, they've put Family First and the Freedom Party ahead of you guys, but those two parties got maybe 2 or 3% respectively. So those votes are still coming back to you regardless.
Again, though, it's the primary. The preference only
Primary
matters.
vote. They're not getting paid.
Yeah, the
They're not
primary.
getting
Yeah.
paid.
And when we're self-funded, this is a perfect example of electoral integrity. Now, they came out just soon after. I'm not going to be able to get a great pick on that. They put Family First up and then myself. And it was my campaign manager contacted them. And I said, look, I need to talk to them. But it was literally in the middle of, everything.
Pre-polls.
Yeah, everything was going on. And they, on a similar, possibly even less of a budget than Joel had, managed to, within 4 hours, my campaign manager contact them. They got in contact with me. I sat through an interview with them. We were able to clear up any concerns that they had. They rang me back and they said, look, we're going to speak to the other candidates that we've got in there. And I said, if you're going to actually go out there and make grand statements about someone being the number one candidate, then you'd want to make sure they're actually a legit candidate. Yeah. Anyway, she came back to me within 20 minutes of following up after our hour and a half conversation. It was more of us discussing topics after the interview process. And she said, we will be right. We'll be on that. We're right to it right now. And they changed it like that. So that's where my issue lies with Joel. You had an opportunity. You spoke to both of us separately. And you said you were going to follow up with your team, and it's the last either of us ever heard of it. So they're
How far out from the election was that? Sorry.
that's on the Tuesday when pre-poll
pre-polls.
has just opened.
2 weeks,
So,
nearly 2 weeks out from the
2
election.
weeks out.
It's pretty much
Maybe
from
10 days.
within 24 hours of their how to votes being launched, we were
Onto it.
onto it. So yeah, Joel can claim that it was difficult and resources were stretched. Get it? We just both run an independent campaign. But if one organisation can do it, then you can too. So if you're going to,
When so much is at
So
stake.
much is at stake,
here,
absolutely.
So much is at stake. We just got locked in our houses for 2 years.
and that's what Victoria's biggest issue is. Start working together, guys. And if you've got decent candidates, like I have a profile in my community, which has helped me get to my vote. Why would you throw someone out there? And speaking specifically to Morgan Jonas and Aidan McClendon from the Freedom Party, and Caroline and I both met with them on a few occasions. Aidan even came to our campaign launch. To have those conversations saying we won't run anyone against you, and then in jokingly, unless we find a better candidate than you, why do you come out 2 days before nominations close and nominate someone? Like, that's insane. We've both been campaigning for months on end. We've spent thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. And you come out and then, like, don't tell me that's not trying to raise your own profile ahead of what's actually for the
Well, it's not really
best
for
of
the
our
cause.
community. It's not for the cause at all.
It's for your own.
That's right. So and that was that the free? Would you say who did that? The Freedom Party.
Yeah.
And that was run by Morgan Jonas.
And Aidan McClendon, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Plus, well, yeah. It was.
I think this
spoke to both
this is a secret that needs to be out there. That independents and Adam and I, we were One Nation candidates, but we did the same thing. We've completely funded our own campaigns. We're not just, given a platform and say go ahead and see what you can do. No, we're putting our own money in to do these things. So I think if voters out there really understood that, it put things in a much better perspective.
Well, I've really realised through this campaign this comes down to education now. People, for the next 4 years, people need educating across everything about, paper candidates, micro parties, splitting the vote, the Greens, because people who voted for Greens in my electorate, you know,
You voted for Labor.
going in, we're going to save the planet. Actually, with the local issues we've got here, you voted to concrete the green wedge, and you need to know that that's what you've done with your vote, that you've voted just for the Labor Party, basically. You know, all of these little things that we need to hone in on and look at where people need to be getting information, just so that,
It's educating the voter.
Yeah.
It's making sure that if we are in a society where voting is mandatory, we need to make sure that when people are rocking up on election day or to pre-poll, because in Victoria we saw more than 50% of the population voting at pre-poll, we need to make sure that they actually know what they're going in to do, and who, when you are voting for the Greens, regardless of the candidate being in the country or not, you need to make sure that you understand that that's a vote for Labor. So,
have we got a picture of this guy, Trippy? Come on, man. Has he got
All
like
right.
you know some mad accent or?
he does have a mad Brazilian accent.
I'm like. So people didn't vote for me because of my beard, and they actually thought that I wasn't Christian. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not, but they thought I'm not. I had people come up to me. I'm not voting for you because you're. There we go.
Weight since then too. So
Do you know the funny thing was, I door knocked on his door with a volunteer. He lived in an apartment complex, actually in my electorate, and he was going, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going back to Brazil." This was a few months before the election, and because my mate who I was with, was on about, and he's like, "Oh no, he's a lefty." Like by work, he was following the election over there, and then my mate Joe was like, "Oh, you'll never guess that Brazilian guy we knocked his door. He's now
personal Facebook page, which I'm probably blocked from now anyway.
I'm kind of getting like a Antonio Banderas kind of like, I know it's Spanish, kind of like a hello, I'm here to take a vote. You know, I'm kind of, you know, with the Puss in Boots
Daniel's a
look,
lovely person. He's a lovely person.
Oh yeah, he can be lovely as much as he wants. He's freaking green.
Exactly, I'm with you. And if you're gonna be here representing your community, you don't want to actually be here. That's the first and foremost part. I
come to take a vote and I give it to the Labor. That's it. That's all you're getting from this guy. Oh, I'd love to meet this guy. I would love to meet this guy because I too would rip the hell out of him. Because one of my favorite things to do is really give Greens, you know, volunteers and stuff.
No, we've had way too much fun with the upper house candidate though. Daniel gets a second look in because Alex Breskin, who ran in the southeast, which covers both of our electorates, that's entertainment plus.
I love it.
When he sat in on a
candidate
forum for your Greens candidate that couldn't public speak, and I just happened to be sitting in the crowd,
throwing out questions at him. He was just like,
I bet you he misses me so much. When he was finished his spiel on how he was here to save the Clarinda electorate and it's what it's facing with the suburban rail loop, I said, well, please explain to me, Alex, why do you still preference Labor second? And he couldn't answer the question. He went off on this massive spiel about the Liberal Party
and lobsters and gangsters.
And we got to the end of his spiel where he was getting quite, flustered about it. And I said, but you never answered the question, Alex. Why are you still preferencing Labor second? And I'm still waiting for my answer, by the way. I still haven't got it.
So Stephen and I went down to Victoria to help because we're One Nation, obviously, right? So we went down to help Ricky Lee and a few of those guys down there at Bentley Hill, right?
Well done, guys. Great work.
Sorry?
Great work.
Oh, thanks. Anyway, well, that's what we do, right? We support each other, teamwork makes the dream work, But anyway, right. Look, I've lost my spot now. So your Greens guys, right, actually look like proper Greens people. So they're all pale, drawn faces. They look like they actually live the life of a Green, vegan and, eating bugs and all this kind of stuff. So in Campbelltown, right? It's not like that. So I'm having an argument with the Greens guy. He's hoeing down on a sausage, on a freedom sausage, right? So he's there like this, Oh yeah, we're gonna all have to eat bugs, and it's a sacrifice we're gonna have to make. Now this guy's pretty obese, and I'm kind of like, like I got better. I like my meat, and I said, mate, I've got a better chance of going on that stupid bug diet than you do, mate. Because look at the way you're going.
Like the last 5 seconds.
And that's it. And then I said, and he goes, full mouth full of sausage, He goes, sacrifice we have to make. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm gonna go to the next booth now because you're a volunteer and I'm a candidate, and I'm going to jump in my big turbo diesel massive van with my massive face on the side of it, and he goes, and I said, turbo diesel, right? And then he's like tried to argue with me, and I said, at least it's got a turbo, and he goes, that's even worse for the environment, blah blah blah, and I'm like, but it burns cleaner with the turbo, and he's meant to be a freaking mechanic anyway. So I've driven past and I beeped as I went away in this huge van, and he's like, mate, the best thing you can do is I'm going to swear here, man, give shit to Greens. I love it because
it's been heaps of fun. I do love it.
It's like grass fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
So because we're neighbouring, so we had this, and our printer was right near the one on the border, in Sarah's electorate, and Sarah was like, there's a Greens volunteer here, and I think I'm going to... And so I get down there, and then...
No, this is the Greens volunteer in the federal election that I had to walk up. Because when you're a candidate, you've obviously got to... Yes.
Was it the same one? He's special, this one.
When you're a candidate, there is only so far... Yeah, he's really special. I actually ended up calling my husband in because he stood over the top of me and started trying to... I'm 5'10", so, it's not an easy thing to necessarily do, but he stood over the top of me and was just shouting down at me about nuclear energy and just going how
good it is or how shit it is.
No, how I was going to create the next Hiroshima or Chernobyl. So it was, but I couldn't even get a word out because I literally had to just play
to the point where,
hey, hang on a tick. So to this election, you've got more confidence when it's your second time round.
It got to the point.
So I just turned around to him during the pre-poll, and I said, Jason, if you go down that path again, I'll be reporting you to the VEC and I'll be having you removed immediately. And that shut him down. But yeah, man, they will play.
In my election, because what Sarah and we ended up teaming up with the Liberal Party and preferencing each other first and second in our electorates. Because there
wasn't much else on offer.
No, well, because one, all of the other candidates were paper candidates, and two, we wanted to get rid of the Labor Party. That was our objective.
Yeah.
And
it was the best strategy.
Well, we needed to trust.
Should have tried ivermectin. That would get rid of them because they are like ticks, aren't they?
So he was the same guy was like yelling at me over and so because we're basically doing what the Labor Party and the Greens do together, just like abusing me across the car
just getting absolutely abused.
Like, Caroline,
just Liberal members.
And I was like, all the way from the other side of the car, I was like, you know what, mate? I don't even know your fucking name. It was
here's your cockroach.
No, he is the cockroach.
Yeah, well.
We had the Liberal Party manager ended up coming over to him and said, it's been really nice at these pre-polls. I suggest you calm down. Otherwise, we're going to have big problems. And then he just shut his mouth the rest. Or he tried to go me another time. I just ignored it. But yeah. Crazy gets crazy.
I love it. I finally, so I'm waiting for state election. I'm waiting for the state election. Obviously, it's in March. I'm a candidate.
Yeah, March. What date in March?
25th.
And so what are you guys doing for that?
Well, I'm going to try and win.
Good.
Yes. Are you running?
That's candidate's disease. Sorry, Stephen. That's candidate's disease. Bad Adam, right?
It all starts from the mind, Adam. It all starts from the mind.
Stay with it. Take the positive.
Yeah, you're going to win.
You're going to win it.
So I'm a candidate. Unfortunately, Stephen's not a candidate because he lives in an area that is blue-green now with blue-green algae. Bit of
That's
teal.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, and it stinks.
Don't stay independent around me. Well,
So,
I mean,
Yeah, no, that was
At least
actually,
you guys
I did
are
get
real.
abused. I did get abused one day for being a teal. And I went, that's the most hurtful thing anyone said to me in my life.
that's like a massive slap in the face.
Huge slap in the face. That's like
Wow.
a major insult. Like, I was happy to be abused by a green than be called a teal.
You should have said,
Actually,
I like nuclear.
I said that on
I've actually
multiple
been
occasions.
approached to run as an independent, so I might have to ask you guys for some advice.
Yeah,
It is fun because
You
you
just
just
let
go,
me
you go
know.
the first time you hit a question of who do I need to ask permission, you go, no one.
Me!
Yes,
I'm going to kill it. If I want to swear, I'm going to swear.
I want to swear. One of my volunteers, actually, because he was abusing one of my volunteers, and then one of my volunteers was like, you know, in the end, I just told him to go fuck himself. And I was like, yes, you did, girl. Good girl. That's my volunteer.
Yes. How good is it? Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I'm One Nation again, and I'm proud to be One Nation. I've got to be honest with you. I understand that, with you guys and down there it's a little bit different, and with your choices and stuff
different.
like that.
Yeah.
All as I've ever seen with One Nation, speaking to Mark Latham and Rod Roberts, I really do think that they still
I've got a lot
have.
of respect for One Nation. Unfortunately, down here in Victoria, like I watched in the federal election, and I really enjoyed running beside Boris, who was running in the Isaac's seat with me. But
He just messaged me today. I've got to message him back. Actually, he just reached out to me today. Yeah, so I'll speak to him. Yeah, I will.
But yeah, the hardest thing was like he got smashed down here. There's a heap of education that needs to be done in Victoria as to I follow Mark Latham and Pauline, and as I said, have a lot of respect for One Nation. You've got to have a very thick skin in Victoria to run in metropolitan Melbourne, probably more so, as a One Nation candidate, because I did see all of Boris's core flutes with Nazi symbols all over them, and I'm holding it to this day. The only person that's defaced one of my core flutes is myself. So I'm wearing that with a badge of honor. None of them have ever been.
No.
Have yours been done?
I just had like big hashtags put over it like that, and I was like, oh really? You couldn't have gotten more creative on my head, really?
I'll tell you the honest truth. Not one of mine got graffitied or anything.
I see.
Yeah.
That'd be a different story in
The
Melbourne.
people love us. The people love us.
That's it. It's just all the love for us.
And I thought, I was going to get a big, because I'm my bald head, I thought I was going to get a big stick or something on there or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I really did, right? And honestly, and then I know one of the guys down there in Victoria, Alan Hicken.
Alan Hicken, yeah.
Yeah, so he's bald like me, and they got like hair from the hairdresser.
Yeah.
And then
right.
like it's pretty brutal, right?
Yeah,
I did have somebody. Yeah, it's pretty brutal, but like I was thinking, like, but you know what? Out my way, Campbelltown way, we've got a strong showing, a good support base, and I think you'd get if you'd get one if somebody saw you'd have one person graffitiing it, and you'd have another person would go, "Hey mate, why? Look at that! Like, wow."
Yeah, that's bad.
I saw that one.
What is with covering their teeth? Although is that his lips?
No, that's his lips. So he's got lipstick on, and he's got a balloon stuck to his head. So it's chicken and mash.
Okay, right. Well, they had a lot of time on their hands, didn't they?
Alan's chicken and mash.
My local MP Meng Heng Tak, you know what? People were actually going around and putting the and this was like in the safest part of his electorate for him. They were putting like the CCP symbol on it.
Really? CCP?
Yeah, so they're putting like this little CCP anchor sign on his thing. I was like, you guys know what's going on here, don't you?
Wow.
So
that was one of the that's a bit of a thing to because that's your Labor guy who won, right?
Yeah, Meng Heng Tak, and so the locals were going around putting CCP symbols on his thing. I'm like, you guys know what's going on here.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You guys are on the ground down there, and you're closer to the city than we spoke to all the One Nation candidates in the lead up to the election, but they're a little bit more rural. You guys are actually in the city. Yeah. What is it with people down in Melbourne? How did they put up with what Dan Andrews did and still be able to vote for him?
You know, it was scary. And this was actually on one of the Discernible episodes, and I can't remember the guy that was actually speaking. he was on the Mordialloc in the Brayside pre-polling booth, and he said he knew straight away as soon as he saw them walking in with their masks still on, they still think that they're being kept safe. That's the biggest issue you've got down here is people still think
Dan kept me safe.
Yeah.
I'd
Oh,
knock
God,
on a
it
door
hurts.
and you'd be like, oh, Dan kept me safe. But what you have to realise as well, like my grandfather that raised me just down the road from Sarah, he was the president of the Labor Party in this electorate since the 1970s.
Yeah.
So this has been built up over decades and decades and decades and decades. And so, but I feel like there is hope. Ian Cook, the independent in Mulgrave, he got about 18%. Me and Sarah off, small budgets. We got, I ended up with 14% once preferences were done. So I
haven't even checked.
It's just decades of indoctrination
It's education as well. Like the number of people that came up to myself or a family member of one of my volunteers and said, "We put Sarah second." It's like,
yeah, but Labor
first. Seriously, what's wrong with you guys? Yeah. Great work, guys. Putting me second, awesome. Who cares after you just put Labor first?
It burns me. You know what? I think that shits me more than anything when people come up to me and say, because people, I had about 8.2% primary.
Yep, nice
and,
one.
That's all right. And didn't nowhere, but I came third, so I also beat my green. And well, that's always a thumbs up. But I had so many people come up to me and go, "Oh yeah, you're the guy," because I stand out a little bit. Voted for you number 2, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, you put UAP first." No, Liberal. Well, I said, well, then how is it? Well, we wanted to change, and I'm like, well, how are you? You're not going to get it changed by doing that, mate.
No.
You just killed your vote. You just killed it.
It's voter education that needs serious work down here.
But the thing with what we're facing down here is I think we've got 500,000 union workers, and so because of Dan and all his infrastructure, they'll get the vote.
My job. Can't lose my job.
Our public sector, our public servants are big and bloated and gotten out of control, so they've got all their votes
Well, I
as
heard
well.
a statistic. It's 1 in 7 over 18s in Victoria is employed by the Andrews government.
By the government.
Yeah.
I've heard that statistic been thrown around a bit as well.
Yeah.
Down there.
That's frightening.
So that's what we're facing. But yeah.
I know that vote's voluntary, right? As in anonymous.
Look, I'm not really sure with the people down here. After,
it's you don't have to tell me who you voted for, but just vote for me.
When you see, it's still pretty fresh, and you guys know all too well. When you watch them going into pre-poll and they're taking all of their how to votes and they're keeping them tucked under their arms.
Yeah.
Look, the number of people that tell you I'm still undecided. Well, I'm sorry, but you should be decided by now. Have you lived on this planet with the rest of us for long enough? You were locked in your house down here in Victoria. A lot of people you would have known have suffered mental health issues. Like if you're a parent, and I've got teenagers, I have seen all too closely to home the issues that are being sustained. My husband's a teacher, so knowing that watching him have to deal with the loss of students during lockdowns and having family members that are suffering severe mental health issues. And some of the stuff that the conversations that I've had to have with, I've got 3 daughters, more so my older 2. Yep. Girls rock. More so with my older 2, the conversations that we've had to have conversations that, and I know as a parent we end up in these situations often, but there is never, ever anyone who's experienced the conversations that we as parents in Melbourne have had to deal with our children after lockdowns and seeing what it's done. And I know my own kids had their own issues, as we all did. It's for a government that runs around telling us that the mental health issue amongst youth is resolved. Bullshit. It's not, and it's going to have years ahead of it. Some of these kids will never, ever be. It'll never be resolved for them. It's
It was
sickening.
It was traumatic.
It is.
Actually.
It's still, look, I call it PTSD which so many of us suffer from, and that I think is almost a result of what the vote reflected. Is
So, sorry guys, but that's super. Like the stress and damage they've done to families and children, and you can never get that back. That time's gone.
Done.
And all you can do is recover.
Yep.
Or, well, really, it's not even recover, because you never recover the time. You can rebuild and try to move on and go forward.
You have to learn from what has happened, and that's what I spend so much time explaining to my kids. We just have to learn from the mistakes that were made, what we did and how we handled it the first time around, and how we can rebuild and do it better. And like all three of my kids have come to both my husband and I at times and said, will we be, are we a chance to go into lockdown again? I said, you know what? Even if the government calls it, good luck, because we won't be following it. You guys can catch up with your friends. If you're not at school, then we'll work with it. And you're going to get, like, there's so many conversations going on down here at the moment as to who will it, what, how's it going to work. But no, I will never isolate my children ever again in society. Absolutely not. And nor will I shut my business as a swim school, because not only watching the drowning statistics, as I mentioned earlier, dealing and working with children with additional needs, the phone calls that I took from parents who may have more than one child who has additional needs, and it was hard enough with my three being locked in our homes and, just being able to go out for a walk. And I got fined down at my shops because I had a white T-shirt on. Yeah, there was a protest in the park. It was a silent protest with teachers. This is a whole other story. And someone may have messaged me to give me the heads up on it, and I decided to go down. I literally just got up and got dressed, because we didn't really move that fast in Victoria whilst we were locked up. And I had a white T-shirt on, and the part of the protest was they had their white T-shirts on that might have said doctor of 20 years, teacher of 10 years.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and I just had a plain white T-shirt on, and I don't wear a mask, but I am an asthmatic as well. So I nearly got arrested in literally 800 metres from my house because I disobeyed the chief health officer's orders. However, it's gone missing. That's fine. I don't know.
You should have ripped your T-shirt off.
What would you rather? What would you rather, officer? I mean,
it would have been a good win for anybody there.
No, it would have been a win for you. That would have been a win for you, because it would have been
done for indecent exposure. They would have had something on me then.
Well, at least it's a real fine for a white shirt.
I was really hoping I was going to get to court, because I would have had an absolute ball.
I would have went to court without my top on too.
No, please, I've seen it, please.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because it's terrible. It's so bad.
So, yeah, there's a lot to be done down in Victoria. It's funny, I was up visiting family up in Sydney over the September school holidays, and even speaking with the family that were up there, they're just like, you guys in Victoria are completely nuts. I said, don't label us. And it was a running joke the whole time we were up there with the family, but you guys are Dan lovers. You vote for Dan. I'm like, it was obviously a joke, but it just feels like a different part of the country.
So let's compare the pair, because I was in a lockdown area as well.
Okay.
You said you had you were able to leave your house for 25 kilometres.
Oh, no. That was when that was 5 kilometres.
5K.
25 is when we were allowed out.
We had 1 hour out a day.
Yeah, just one.
Playgrounds were
Remember,
shut
we weren't
down.
allowed to leave our homes after 9 p.m. It was my favourite time to go
Curfew.
work. I've never gone walking after 9 p.m. in my life unless curfew was on.
We had a 3 kilometre radius from our house. Our parks were closed.
Yep.
We had one person could leave the house at a time to go to the shop. So if you wanted to, so me and my wife couldn't leave to go to the shop together, obviously.
No, we were the same.
But one could go, and then one could come back. And then if another one had to go, then they could go and come back.
Well, we were only allowed to go to the shop once. a day, apparently.
Really?
We got to the point.
Only
because ours went
essential
for so-
items.
Ours
Only-
went for so long.
So we had police officers going through people's shopping bags, checking
But
that
I
they
couldn't
were
even
buying-
get toilet paper. What's more essential than that?
No, exactly. I now order my toilet paper online just in case. You know, who knows what's
Mind
coming
you,
next.
this was all based on health advice that we still haven't seen.
Yes.
And it's
I
just
know.
crazy. And it's crazy. Who made all this stuff up? It's just someone made it up.
God, I
But
wish I
Trippy,
could
we have
tell
seen
them.
some advice. We have seen some of it because of Janine Small in the European Court saying, "Guess what? Pfizer didn't test for transmission." So that's that.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not trying to cut you. I'm just saying, like, that's that little bit of evidence. That's basically voids.
You haven't
everything.
seen that in the mainstream media, though, Adam, have you?
Was it? That was on Sky. That was on Sky News. Didn't they put it on Sky News?
Did they? I don't know. We'll have to
I'm
check.
I don't know.
sure I
Well,
saw it.
It
I mean, you
certainly
look at the
wasn't on-
COVID. Look at the COVID numbers now, and all they did was kick the can down the road, and they put all these people under lockdown. You guys have mentioned all the mental health stuff that's gone on. Sadly, people committed suicide. I mean, the excess deaths are
13%.
way off the chart.
13%.
Who knows what that yeah, exactly. So look, I'm getting the vibe from you guys that you haven't given up on being candidates.
No, we
what's
are
in the,
back to
do you guys
drawing board.
plan to run again?
I will run for council down
nice.
here because they need to be held to account.
Our council is so bad.
It's just like it's a mini little branch of the Labor Party. And that was another thing that we both faced because in both of our electorates we share two councils. Kingston Council, where I reside and run my business. And it was very much the same with Dandenong City Council as well. They could not have cared less about us as candidates. It was
Well, they hold brunch, so they'll hold like campaign breakfasts for like the Labor Party and the Greens and the Liberal Party.
we're
Then
not
they'll-
invited.
No, and then
And
they'll
we're so much fun at these events. I can't understand why they didn't invite us. I mean, this would have livened it up a bit for them.
and then so on their social media, they're constantly promoting the major parties and their pork barreling, right? And then so Sarah and I had a decent crack. We were like, "What's the go?" And they're like, "Oh, you can just email us." And then Sarah emailed
I did.
them,
I followed the protocol that they gave.
and they just
Crickets.
ignored
Got
it.
absolutely
Didn't even get a
nothing.
response.
At least you won't go hungry.
So when I saw that, I immediately had a flick of the switch and I went, okay, well, I'm going to come for you guys too because you all need to be held to account and there's only one way to do it.
I'll have to put you in touch with one of my friends, Michael Angelkovic, because he has the worst council apparently to deal with. And
What does
he's
he
just
do?
I don't know whether I should say it or not.
Don't throw him under the bus just yet.
I might cop a bullet in the head. But we put you in touch with it. I might when you run for council.
Yep.
Flick us a message, and I'll put you in touch with this guy because he's been an amazing campaigner. I think he's gonna try and run with us. But he knows council in and out, and I know there's different wards and electorate and all that crap. But he's got dirt on these guys and the nepotism.
City of Kingston will be just waiting for me because when I first opened my business, I ended up in VCAT with them because of a bit of a dodgy dealing between planning officers, which I outwardly won and got more than I could have ever even gone in to ask for. But I'm a strong believer in standing up for what's right and not letting these parties bully you in or intimidating you into what you can and can't do. So now that, I think probably the first step was back, 12 years ago when I took Kingston to VCAT, and now getting the confidence off the federal election and then into the state election, I'm like, you know what? It's not okay. We need more real people out there that live in our real world And we need to be the ones representing the people, not some glorified career politician who's working their way through council to try and get to their next step on their political agenda. And that I have had an absolute gutload of. So for me, its next stop is council. And I won't be keeping that quiet either, because I can't wait to next week go after our mayor change during the wind-up of the state election. And I feel like I'm playing like an epic game of hide and seek with him. So it's time to up my ante a little bit on the coming next week and play no longer hide and seek. I think I'm just going to call him out publicly and see if he comes out hiding. So I'm sick of it. It's there's too many people in these positions of responsibility that are there for their own benefit and not for the benefit of their community at all. And it's got lost. Politicians have got lost on what they were actually elected to do.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Caroline?
Yeah, I'll go again. So,
get me in there. When's the next one?
What's that in reference to?
That's the the roll up paper thing, the horn
thing that the drops out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This was like party festivity thing.
Yeah, so I mean, I just need to I just feel like how long ago now? It was about 14 days ago. So 2 weeks.
We're still in recovery at the moment.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's only been 2 weeks. So I need to and my grandfather passed away during the election, so now I'm dealing with the property and getting my business back on track because I went off and campaigned for a year. But I think what Sarah and I will do is, we'll sit down and do a full assessment of our campaign, and then look at
what worked, what didn't work,
next steps forward, and then planning that out, what we want to achieve in the next election and how we're going to go about it. But yeah, I mean, council's just never really interested me, but I'll support Sarah in her endeavours and have a bit of fun shit posting on Facebook to help the campaign.
So do you see?
And because you're independent, you can't get this endorsed, right?
No, we're here to stay. So yeah, we particularly in our area, the council. So it'd be great to see Sarah get elected on council. We really need some decent.
Well, the plan is to build a team of people who will run, as opposed to and it's not all, but majority that sits in the council ward that I will be going for, literally on their way to see which part of the Labor Party they can get into to represent next. And that's not okay in my book anymore. So it's time to get people to pull their head out of the sand. And Caroline will certainly be beside me getting that team together to make sure that there's multiple people that can get elected to come in on council as well. Because if I go in on my own, it's not really worth being there. So it's making sure that we pull out other prominent people within our community and helping them get elected as well. And then after that, we'll both have another crack at state, because I live here. I'm a Melburnian through and through. Yes, in lockdowns, I think I sold my house about 15 times. My husband telling me constantly, we can't just leave that easily. As I said, I've got teenage children that are, one's going into year 12 next year. So yeah, this is my home. This is where my business is, where my children are, and my family. And I'm going to fight until the end of it. So yeah, fortunately, I'm in a position from a business perspective. I only have to work part-time. So game on. I've got plenty of time to throw into the next run.
Because why should you leave?
I should.
It's going to follow us wherever we go anyway. What we're facing now, the next one here is the 20-minute neighbourhoods. This is the next you know, lock you within your district to save the environment. You got to, you know, you can't have a car. You know, I know that.
Was it share cars?
I don't even know. No, they're trialing it over in England at the moment.
How the hell am I meant to tow the boat? Like, seriously.
Well, you won't never get to use it.
I live on the beach. I need to use it.
Just, I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to have to get, if they bring in this 20-minute city thing, you're going to get in your boat.
I'm out of here. So
you're going to keep going. Just stock it up and go. Because I'm telling you,
that's. We use our boat during lockdowns, and the number of times I was out there in the middle of winter, which you can imagine how warm that was in Melbourne. And I'm going, we could make a run for it. And I'm like, we'd run out of petrol though. We've got not enough fuel.
Where would you go?
Exactly. Where was I going to make a run for Tassie?
Tassie, what? Or from Point Break, I'm going to go to New Zealand.
I don't want to go to New Zealand though.
That's worse.
And
think about it. We've got China up the top of us.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere. We're surrounded by crap.
Yeah.
Do you remember there was a billionaire that jumped on a yacht from Melbourne and went up to Queensland during the lockdown?
I think it was the Simmons homeowners.
Oh,
it was actually one of my volunteers on the federal campaign. And I won't mention her name, but her and her partner sold up everything and bought a magnificent yacht, and literally in the darkness of night went out through the heads and disappeared up the coast. And
nice.
They got out, and I'm like, congrats to you, my friend. Well done. She came back, though, so I'm like, did you not learn?
Think about it. It. Like, wow.
It's like Squid Game.
That person should also be a candidate.
Yes. She should, agreed. She the reason why she came back though is her children they had the first grandchild arrived, so that brought
I thought
back.
she forgot her children.
No, the children are adults, so she was happy to leave them, but once the grandchildren were on the card, she's like, "Damn it, we made this epic escape, and now we have to go back." So they came back, and
crazy times.
Well, I'll give you some advice that our leader gave us. That you know, all politics is local.
Yes.
And Stephen's also said that to me many a times. And so, you know, the council's a good way to go.
Absolutely.
And helping each other out is, you know, like you guys you two remind me of Stephen and I, because we met also through campaigning, and I got this email from Stephen going, "Hey man, hey man, how are you?" And I'm like, "Hey dude, like what's up?" And it's kind of like the Big Brother house, and you're just thrown into this steamer or pressure cooker of an environment.
We thrive in it though. It just seems like the both of us tick when we're in it. It's just it really is like you just go, and you're throwing ideas at each other. And I mean, we're doing it now. As I said, we're still in recovery, but what's next? What's the plan? How do we do it? Well, the breakdown of each booth has just come out on what the results are, and it's like analyze the data now, pull it apart, where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses. And I probably had a leg up on Caroline in this one because I was able to do that on the federal election as well, and the data reflects still the same, so I didn't break into the other areas as much as I would have liked to. So there's all those things to cover, and how's the best way to approach it, and you know what worked, what didn't work, and that's 4 years of planning right there. So
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, guys. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Your last question.
We're rounding up now. We're winding up now.
Thank you for having us. It's been good. It's been awesome.
No, all best of luck in the upcoming local election. When is the local election for you?
Not till 2024. So I get to. I'm kind of grateful because doing a federal and a state in the same year was pretty harsh. So it's
well, if we're still around, we'll have you back on the show. And Adam and I were just down in Canberra on our way back from the Victorian election, and we actually were very privileged to have a behind-the-scenes tour of Parliament House, where all the senators' offices are. I can really see Carolyn just strutting down the hallways there, dropping F-bombs and saying, I'm here, baby.
That's going on, people. Oh, look, some of the stuff they get onto in those offices, I'm like, oh, wow.
We did have the pleasure of Ralph Babette was following us quite closely, and he dropped into one of our events. So he's a great bloke, and he's doing wonderful things in the Senate.
Yeah, no, he's
How tall is the guy?
Yeah, he's pretty tall.
Yeah.
Well, I'm short, so everyone's tall for me.
I'm like, yeah, he's tall. It's just thereabouts. So,
yeah, well, if you guys are in Melbourne as well, let us know.
Yeah,
we'll catch up. And Stephen, if you're going to go independent, feel free to just reach out, and I can give you a bit of support.
We've got
we'll definitely stay in touch. Yeah. How can people follow you guys if they want to jump on the bandwagon and see what you guys are up to?
So I'm still on my socials as candidate for Mordialloc. I have not come to the conclusion yet of what my next title on social media will be. I think you're still candidate for Clarinda.
Yeah, maybe political animal might be more appropriate.
A friend of ours ran to throw a teal off. Jane Argerton ran for the seat of Mordialloc. It's quite funny. The three of us got attacked for
seat of
being
Mornington.
So did I.
Sorry, we got attacked for being blonde. We got
attacked because the three of us are blonde independents. It was like, wow, really upset some apple carts because of her hair colour.
But
Jane,
she stopped a teal from getting elected just by running, which was brilliant.
Which was, absolutely fantastic. So she now has her title as Jane Argerton Teal Slayer. So we'll see what.
Yeah, we're Facebook, Instagram. We're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter, but I'm not very good at it.
We need to get better at Twitter.
I'm a bit lost there.
But
you can follow us at.
I've got a website, votecaroline.com. Not that it's really appropriate anymore.
And I'm Sarah at saraho'donnell.com.au.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. That's
awesome.
Cool.
And when are you guys starting up your podcast? Because you guys are naturals at this.
We're actually it is in the making, believe it or not. As I said, we're both in recovery still, remember, from just coming off the election. I think business-wise and family-wise, we'll get through Christmas.
Our kids need some attention now.
We've got to go back for a moment.
Mom!
I think your partner and my husband are looking going, oh, thank God they're back. Because we certainly left it to go to daycare for a while. So they did an awesome job.
Yeah, very lucky.
And we're both so lucky. Like, it's kids out on the campaign trail with us, and husbands and partners, and family members out there, because everyone gets behind you, and you need that, or you can't do.
My dad was the best, actually. He's a bit of a dude, so that was funny to see him. Everyone was like, we come to pre-polls, be like, I met your dad, and I'm like, everywhere.
That's awesome.
And I had my eldest daughter finished her year 11 exams, and they had that break before they started year 12, and she even managed to recruit, like, if anyone's got teenagers, you can just imagine how awesome teenagers are at actually coming into the political world. Not great, but they had a ball. So a handful of them came along and said, "Yeah, well, I told Jess that you don't have a choice because we're short on a pre-polling booth, so you're doing it." And she managed to rustle up some friends, and they asked if they could come back the day after, and they did like 3 days on the trot. And I'm like, that's out of 5 days that they had off. They these 17-year-old girls were down there. I did get accused of potentially
vote for my mum. Vote for my mum.
I did get accused of potentially putting young girls out there as objects as opposed to being out there to hand out my how to votes. And I'm like, you just gotta love Labor. And I said yes because I'm actually the parent of one of them and they're her friends. But anyway, so no, it was a really good experience, and it got them speaking and got them talking about, hang on a sec, we're actually
it opens your eyes.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. Like, we've spent so long where politics has been something that's taboo to talk about. Like, I remember when I was being raised, it wasn't, you didn't talk about religion or politics. Well, no. We talk about it all and we discuss it. out in the open, and none of it's taboo. It's all okay. And if you've got questions, ask them. And if you've got concerns, So that's the plan, is to change it. And if I can do that in my neighbouring communities with helping change what other families are doing. And as Caroline and I said, we're in a pretty privileged position, being, I don't want to label, middle-aged women.
I'm not middle-aged.
Yeah, you've just gotten older, okay?
I'm middle-aged now.
Yes, you are.
Oh no, that's not good.
I'll
I don't look at those. I don't look at those.
You go out and I get asked whether I'm the mother of you, so we're not going so well.
Oh, people thought Joe was my dad, and he's like, if anyone else is the whole time, all during the campaign was, you look too young to
if
be.
If we go out, she still gets asked for ID, and I'm like,
wow.
Anyway,
Very
so
cool.
if we can make a difference by educating the mums and women in our areas, and then therefore educating children as well. What it has been proven is that women often influence their significant other as well. So, if that is how we can bring back to make sure that this whole education process takes place. I know that on pre-polling booths, running into other mums that I know who are bringing their children down to vote for the first time, and saying,
they're like, we're just going in to make sure they do the right thing.
But I even had well, they take my how to vote, but they tell their kids to just go and select the one that works best for you. And I'm like going, you can't.
How do they know?
That's too late. Now you need to take control as a parent and be responsible. We all know they're going to grab the green.
Mine were like, no, I'm making sure they vote the right way. I was like, yes.
Yeah, good.
So there's a lot of education to be done, and it's, the conversation should have happened 4 years beforehand in their household when their child wasn't of voting age, and discuss what's out there. And no, you don't necessarily, you're not telling them what to do, but you are explaining to them what this stands for, what that represents. This is what happens when we're in lockdown, and who voted here, and who crossed the floor, and all of that needs to be out in the open. Politics needs to be something that's discussed, because ultimately in your chosen industry down the track, if you're a business owner, you name it, politics plays a part in all of our lives. So having them understand what's taking place is hugely important, and we've got a long way to go. So
yeah, well, I'm sure with you two down in Victoria, and we got me and Trippy and I up here, and I'm sure there's a few guys in Western Australia. We'll get
that's it. There are a number of us out there, and that's the really reassuring thing, is there's a steady network.
It's joined a lot of us down here together because what we've experienced. I've got it's like a whole new family, isn't it? And new friends. And it's huge,
it's massive.
The type of numbers that were working on our campaign together are just locals that, all feel the same way, and, all want to achieve the same thing together. So it's it's a beautiful thing.
I think that's the best part of the pandemic. There's a lot of heroes have kind of risen from the pandemic that weren't notable before that. So
that's
definitely
exactly
think
right. Neither of us would probably be here and stepping up to make this change if we had just been bumbling along in our lives.
I'd be drinking a cocktail next to the pool right now. Thanks, Dan.
Damn you, Dan.
Dan.
Yeah. But he's got to deal with you now, though. So who's got it worse?
It gets a little bit nerve-wracking. I don't know. They're a powerful bunch down here.
That's how I view it. I mean, I look at these people. I'm like, you locked us down. You put all these things in front of us. Now you have to deal with me. I was happy just going to work every day.
My current member did actually throw his weight around and his positions of power within the Labor Party and put a bit of pressure on my husband's job. So everything was fine, but that's the reality down here. And it's certainly not the first story that I know and was part of as to what they will do. So in some regards, I'll never forget watching on election night, watching it all roll out. And I'm like, do we go into hiding now? Do we go, blonde hair gone? Are we going to have to take on disguise and really start to that boat trip that we're going to have to get out of town and go hide somewhere. So,
Well, if there's ever a social credit system, we're stuffed.
we're done. We're done.
Oh, we are. We're the bad guys.
Yeah, we're the first
we
ones
are
down.
the bad guys. Yeah.
I said that. I said will we all get arrested? All of us, every single one of us, just for this podcast alone, will get arrested.
Yeah. They've got the concentration camps ready for us
us.
too. I'm excited.
We could be neighbours.
Well, that'd be awesome. But how is it that people don't realise that these are concentration camps?
It's
Like, because they call them wellness camps now or something. Oh, we're just changing
a
the name.
wellness camp. I've driven past ours in Victoria down here, and it doesn't look very well being liked at all. The barbed wire
Isn't
was
it all barbed wire around it?
Yes.
Well, all right. Now go to another publicly funded building that has barbed wire all wrapped around it. What's it called?
No.
Prison.
This one isn't too far from the prison that they've built, so it's actually quite ironic.
Far out. That's bloody crazy. These buggers.
Yes.
I don't know. I just get so frustrated with it. You need to. I don't know if he's got Netflix, but you need to watch. You need to watch How to Become a Tyrant. It just tells you everything that's been done in this show, like everything that's a playbook for becoming a tyrant. Our governments have done the whole time.
Yeah.
Just watch it. It'll give you a bit more. Cool.
I was going to say at the moment I'm just getting to the end of Dharma, and that's
I just finished Dharma. I just finished Dharma last week.
I don't know what that is.
Jeffrey Dahmer. He killed about 17.
Yeah, no, it's look, it's not. It's rather
people.
disturbing. It's really, really bad.
Mm.
Really
We watched something disturbing last night. We watched a movie filmed in Melbourne called The Cost last night. One of my friends was pretty much starring in it, and it was an amazing movie, but it was like full on. It was so confronting as well. So it was. Yeah.
Oh, check it out.
Yeah, it's called The Cost.
All right,
Check it out. But I've seen the Dharma thing that you're talking about. I haven't watched
the scary part about Dharma is it's actually based on real story. That's the scary part. Yeah. But
That's addictive one.
it is. It's the car accident you can't look away from.
Mm.
But
All right,
you for
well, we
having
better
us,
wrap it up. Thank you very much for
Yep.
coming on,
Thank you
Sarah
very
and
much.
Caroline. We really appreciate it, and feel free to
we
bombard our
look forward to
Facebook.
inviting you onto ours.
Yeah, we better be the first guest.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about policy. Talk about education.
Policy apparently doesn't get you elected though these days because you can just ask legalise cannabis. They got 3 seats down here for one policy. So
Yeah, legalizing cannabis. Because you got a lot of. Because all you got is you got communist stoners down in Victoria. That's it.
got no choice really.
Communist stoners. That is just so funny.
Yeah.
Communist stoners. They literally are. God, and they walk amongst us. That's
Well,
really
on
awesome.
that note, we better wrap it up. Please share
Alright.
this episode if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Have a good one. See ya.